This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Lamid Aleph. This is the Daf for Simchas Torah, an incredible day of Torah, especially for those that learn the Torah. Us here at Daf Yomi World, we like all the learning to be an incredible Schos Refuah Shlema for Gabriel Simcha, Ben Miriam Ahuva, Psiyata Dishraya, the incredible Kayach HaTorah generated. Every word Talmud Torah Kenegei Kulam should continue bringing Refuah's advancements for Gabriel Simcha Ben Miriam Ahuva. We go Lamed Aleph, 3 lines down, really piggybacking on the previous discussion, which we like to coin, partial machshavos, half of this and half of that, and how do we combine them, etc. So says the Gemara, Itmar. Chatzi zayis chutz lemizmanai v'chatzi zayis chutz lemekaymai. Someone has a machshava that he's going to eat not a full kizayis, not a full olive's worth, but a chatzi zayis shaloi chutz lezmanai, further than its time, literally, which of course we know is a machshava of pigol, or and chatzi zayis chutz lemekaymai, and then v'chatzi zayis chutz lezmanai, and then another chatzi zayis. So there's 3 chatzi zaysim happening. The first chatzi zayis chutz lezmanai, the second one chutz lemekaymai, and then the third chatzi zayis back to chutz lezmanai. Amar Rava vayikatz ki yoshein hapigol. The pigol has awoken. Good morning. The pigol has awoken, the one that was sleeping. Meaning that you had chutz lezmanai, then you had chutz lemekaymai. But because you then have chutz lezmanai, it puts it together with the original chutz lezmanai and makes it a full-fledged machshava of pigol, which of course will passel and have kares. Rav Amnuna Amar, Irav machshavas haveino, everything is mixed up, it's one big tarayves, and therefore it's not a machshava of pigol. Amar Rava, says Rava, where do I know this? The Tanan kebeo ichal rishon v'kebeo ichal sheni. This zok the Heilige Mishnah, the Mishnah in Tahayros. If an egg's worth a beya is a rishon in the world of Tuma, a rishon latuma, and a beya is what? Nachamol. Excuse me. A beya is, one more time, a beya is a rishon latuma, and a beya is a sheni latuma. Shabalala and zeb is as. So we have 2 levels of tuma. We know there's ava tuma, a rishon, a sheni. So we have a rishon and a sheni that are mixed together. What is the din? Says the Mishnah. Rishon, the mixture is considered a rishon. Chulkan, if you mix the mixture, if you were chalak, if you divided the mixture, zesheni, v'zesheni, then we have a maifis. Together, they're called a rishon. You split them in half, and each part is called a sheni. Hachazar v'yirvan. So what do we learn from the Mishnah? If you put the 2 parts together, l'chayra, rishon, it goes back to being a rishon have. So says Rava, what do we see from this fascinating Mishnah in Tyrus? Mimai, Mediktani Seifa, Nafal Zeba Atzma. He says the end of this Mishnah, if after you split up the mixture into 2 halves, Nafal Zela Atzma, Vizeba Atzma, Al Kikar Shal Truma, each half, which we know that each half right now is the status of a Sheni, and they fall onto a loaf of bread of Truma. Now, Truma, food cannot be messed up by a Sheni, it could only be messed up by a rishon. What's the halacha? Pasluha. They make the truma apostle, but naflu shneim kiachas. If the 2 of them fall together, so again, 2 shenis fall, they passel up the truma. If they fall together, then what? Asua shniya. They don't only passel up the truma, they make it, the truma, into a sheni, which means it can continue making something else tamei. Which means that when they were together, they have the status of a rishon. A rishon makes something a sheni. So again, if I have each half, two shenis fall onto truma, they mess up the truma, they passel it up, they don't go, it doesn't go any further. It doesn't make the truma into a rishon, into its sheni. But if they fall together, then it makes the truma into a sheni, which clearly means that when they fall together, they get the status of a rishon. Says the Gemara. So what do we see from over here? We see that the two of them combine, bringing back the original status of a rishon. That's Rava's raya by us, that we have a machshava chutz zmanoi with another machshava chutz zmanoi, even though there was a machshava chutz mekayma in the middle. Says Rava, the two machshavas chutz zmanoi combine and create pegol. Now, obviously, I'm sure many are bothered that the comparison between Dini Toma, Dini Machshavas Pegol might not be the easiest comparison, but that is what the Gemara says. That is Rava's Mikar. Rav Amnuna Amar comes along Rav Amnuna and says, no, Hasam Ika Shiura, over there, they're different parts of, they're different levels. One's a Rishon, one's a Sheni, but they both have the requisite shear. They're both a Beya. They're both a Beya, just different levels of Toma. Says Rav Amnuna. So that's why maybe they combine over there. But by us, like a shiur, each one's only a chatzi zayis. So says Rav Amnuna, that's not a raya to our din. Rather, Rav Amnuna says, I'll bring you right to what I said, which is what? That it does not create pegel. Says Rav Amnuna, I'll tell you where I learned it from. Ditanan, a different Mishnah on Tairais. We have food that became tummy through an avatoma, like a mace. Vishanitma bivlada toma. And it became tongue through a vlada toma, sheni latoma. Now Rashi over here fills in the blanks. That what we're talking about is that each part is a chatzi beya. It's not a full beya's worth. What's the halacha? Misarvin zeh and zeh, they combine one with another, and now it's one beya. Litame bikal shebeshneim, that it will make something else tame with the lower level of tama, meaning like the sheni, not like the rishon, not like the av. Make it like the rishon, not like the av. So says Rav Amnuna, my love, avagav d'ader malaya. Says Rav Amnuna, seemingly the Mishnah doesn't give us a precise case that is referring to. So it would seemingly be, even though you have more of the original level of Toma, but the halacha is it goes to the lower level. So says Rav Amnuna, what do we see? We see they do not combine to take on the original status. Says the Gemara, no raya, Dilma, Deloy, Hadar, Malia. Maybe that's not exactly what happened. So Rav Amnuna's raya is not absolute. Continues the Gemara, Kiasar Avdimi Amar, Chatzi. So that's really the end of, we could call it case one of today, which is, how do we view Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanoi, Chatzi Zayis Chutz Mekoimoi, and Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanoi, a machlek is Rava and Rav Amnuna, each trying to source their opinions. Continues the Gemara, Kazra Avdimi Amar Anukis. Chatzi Zayis Chutz Mekoimoi first, then Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanoi, and then Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanoi again. So what do we say in this case? Tani Bar Kapara Pegel. Ein Chatzi Zayis Moyel b'Makayim Zayis. We have a full Kizayis of Chutz L'Zmanai. The fact that there was an original Chatzi Zayis Chutz L'Makayim, who cares? Says Bar Kapara, and it'll be regular Pegel. Ki also Ravin Amar, Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanei, Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanei, and then Chatzi Zayis Chutz Mekaimai. Tani Bar Kabara, Pigel, in Chatzi Zayis Moyel, B'Makum Zayis, a very similar case over here, just the Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanei came first, and again, Nachamol, in this case, it's going to create Pigel, says Rav, says Bar Kapara. Ravashi Masni Hachi Chatzi Zayis, a third way of learning. Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanei, Ukzayis, Chatzi Zayis Chutz Zmanei, Ukzayis, Chatzi Chutz Zmanei, Chatzi Chutz Le. And this is the case that Tani Bar Kapara, Pigel, will create Pigel in Chatzais Moyel b'makum kizayis. So three different ways of learning that the fact that there was some element of Chutz l'Mekaimai doesn't mess up once there's a full Zayis worth of Chutz Liz Manoi. Says the Gemara, so that's part 2 of today's shir. Part 3 of today's shir, Amar Rav Yanai, Chishev she'achlua klavim lamachar pegol. Says Rav Yanai, let's go a little bit deeper into the machshavos of pegol. About 15 lines from the bottom of Lamed Aleph. Lamed Aleph, first one line is Kazayis. Says Rav Yanai, if someone had a machshava that dogs will eat the carbon the next day, pegol, that caused pegol dechsev. Vasizevel yochlu aklavim bechilik Israel. It says, and Izevel will be consumed by the dogs in the chilik of Israel. So what do we see? That a machshava for dogs creates pegol. Maskiv la Ravami Elameyato. 1 second. Chishev shetachlua eish lamachar. If you have a thought that it's going to be consumed the next day by a fire, not the mizbeach's fire, are you going to tell me as well? Techsev tachlua eish neifach. Hochinami the pegel that causes pegel, and maybe you'll tell me v'chidim hochinami v'atana lechul k'chatzi zayis ulakter k'chatzi zayis kosher sheina achila v'aktarim mitzarfin. They don't combine. And if achila and achshava don't mitzarfin, the Gemara seemingly wants to say that an eish of a non-mizbeach eish won't mess it up either. Says the Gemara, no. Idavka b'lashon achila. If he says that burning in a lashon of achila, then you're right, achinami. And that's when they won't combine. Ravashi, based on the above, asks Ravashi, frags Ravashi a shayl. Someone has intent that one kizayis will be eaten either chutz l'zmanoi or chutz l'mekaimai by 2 different people, each one eating a chatzi zayis, so no one's having a full shear. Mao, pasuk machshava aslin on tika shira lamaisa in his machshava, in his mind, he's having a machshava of what? A kizayis. Or says the Gemara 3 lines from the bottom. Basar oichlan aslin of like a shira. So what is the din? Amar Rabbi Tashma proved to you like chatzi zayis like chatzi zayis kosher shenachila baktara mitzarfin. But then what's the reason that achila and aktaram, the 2 are not mitzarfin? And we turn over to Lamed Aleph Amid Beis and is medayik the Gemara. Holechol v'lechol, not lechol aktir. Lechol dom yod lechol aktir. In a similar vein, ve'echi dami, what would be a comparable case of achila and aktara similar to, achila and achila is similar to achila and aktara b'shnei b'nei adam. What would we see? Mitzarfin shmamina. So proves Abaye the teretz that it would indeed combine. Bayi Rava, another shayla 3 lines down. Lamed Aleph on the base. Chishav lechol kizayis basar mechdei achilas pras mahu. You had intent to eat a kizayis of basar. Be yaser mechdei achilas pras. Excuse me, longer than mechdei achilas pras. Meaning, you're going to eat the requisite amount to mess it up, a kizayis, but it's going to take longer than the amount of time to eat. Lachilas gavaya medamnina lei. Do we say that it's comparable to achilas gavaya, which achilas gavaya, when it sits in the mizbeach, there's no such thing as how long it's going to sit there, and therefore it should, yes, create pegel. Or lachila hedye medamnin alei. Or do we say that it's comparable to achila hedye, and therefore it is tali in kidei achilas pras. So Amar Abaye Tashma proof to you lechol kchatzais l'aktir kchatzizayis kosher. Says Abaye, if his intent was to eat half and burn half, it's kosher. Shein achilav aktar mitzarfin. Time with the lechol aktir. Ha lechol mitzarif. I v'aktar b'yez midei achilas prasu. Says more no raya double basik gadol. So more thought it had a raya, but more said not necessarily is there a raya because it could be we're talking about a large fire, and therefore, even though he's talking about stam hektar, not hektar on mizbeach, maybe it was a large fire, and therefore it was within the span of kedei achilas pras. And we continue by quoting the last part of the Mishnah. Lechol chatzizayis aktir chatzizayis is kosher. Says the Gemara, they don't combine. Time with the lechol haktir, because his intent was what? To eat and to burn. Halechol lechol davar she'ein darkei lechol. Let's say you're at all your kavanah was about consumption, but it was with regard to something that you don't normally eat. Then what? Mitzarif. It would combine. Hakatani Reisha, but the Reisha said, Hakatani Reisha lechol she'en darkei lechol mitzarif v'shtarkei lechol in she'en darkei lechol loy. So the diak of the seifa is at odds with the Reisha. The diak at the seifa seemingly implicates that if it's davar she'ein darkei lechol, it's still going to be mitzarif. But the Reisha said, "Klar, it's not." Omer Rav Yirmiyah, Hamani Rebel Yezid, Davar Machshivin, Mechilas Adam, Mechilas Mizbeach, Lechilas Adam. Says Rav Eliezer, and we had this Rav Eliezer quoted 2 days ago, that we do combine, we do allow one machshava to go from Mechilas Adam to Mechilas Mizbeach. The Tanan, Hasheichlis, is Davar Lechol, Davar Shein Darkei Lechol. Well, Haktir, Davar Shein Darkei Lehaktir. You're burning and you're eating things that you're not normally eating and burnt, kosher. But Rav Eliezer, Paisel, Rav Eliezer combines the machshavos. Abaye Amar, another teretz. Afilu temer rabbanan. V'loy temer halecha v'lechol davar shein darkei lechol. Eleima halecha v'lechol davar shein darkei lechol. Says the Gemara, but they might come out to them. What's the chiddush if it's something that's normally eaten? Eat davar shein darkei lechol. Says the Gemara, you know what the chiddush is? Kamash malan meireisha. Kamash malan meireisha. We already learned it out from the Reisha. Says the Gemara that what? No, let's read it again one more time. My kamashman, what would the chiddush be? Asks the Gemara. Davar. No, I think I skipped a line. One more time. Abaye Amar, let's read it again. Afilu temer rabbanan v'loy temer halechol v'lechol davar shein darkei lechol elim dar halechol davar shein darkei lechol. Says the Gemara, if that would be true, my kamashmalan. Davar shein darkei lechol. If it's that's normally in Kamash Malan, Shemamina, me Reisha, Shemamina already knows from the Reisha that says the Chatzai the Machar, Pasol, Lechul Haktir. And if you're talking about it's a case of Achila and Aktara, then Mediuk the Reisha Shemamina that says Lechul Davar Shedarkei Lechol in, Davar Shedarkei Lechol loy. So says the Gemara, what is the case in the Mishnah? Hashtam Alechav Lechol Davar Shedarkei Lechol loy mitzarif, then Lechul Haktir mi boy. Says the Gemara, so you know what the case must be. Lechol Haktir it's tarich. That's the chiddush. Sel kadei techamina asamu deloi. Why? Ki orchei kam mechashev. The two machshavas don't combine. Why? Because it's not normal. It's a normal teeth, so that's not normally eaten. Each one is regular. Then what? Maybe it does combine. Kamash Malan. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. That will not combine, even though it's davar shedarkei. It's something that is normal. Hajon Allah kol zevachim shekiblu daman. What has chos? On the day we finish the Torah and Simchas Torah, we wrap up the second parak of Zevachim. Mirza Hashem for Isru Chag will begin the new parak in Mirza Hashem.